and so I probably wouldn't venture off to try to buy rum on my own unless I was consulting with Richard or Marshall or someone who's knowledgeable about the topic. And it's definitely not like like I said, I don't really drink liquor or anything really on my own, so it's like I don't have like my own like collection sitting around. This is my collection now. This is my liquor collection now. Thank you. But I did enjoy it, and I really appreciated the craft and everything. Definitely, rum as like a base substance doesn't appeal to me quite in the same way whiskey does.
Yep.
But I did enjoy it, and I really opened my eyes because all it had was freaking Bacardi or whatever before.
Yeah.
You know. Anything done well, anything that people are passionate about and they do well, I'm here for that.
That's what I love about your approach is that you're not a drinker, but you can appreciate things. And although I am a bit of a drinker, like I'm mostly coming from a place where I love the culture and the flavor around spirits and food and beverage. And so like it's cool to see that someone that hardly drinks can still sit down and go, wow, this is very interesting. I'm pulling out all these flavors and like
yeah, it's beautiful.
That to me, that's what it's mostly all about.
It's
really.
It's so compelling. Like the barrels, the age, the tradition, the peat, and like everything we're talking about. How can you not like that? It's so compelling.
Yeah, the least interesting thing about spirits, and I've been working in spirits for 20 years if you count the bartending, and 10 years if you count the sales and marketing. But like the least interesting part is getting drunk. I've had some great nights with great friends around the world where we're buzzed, we're having a good time. That's all great. But the most interesting is the sharing and the flavors and the thought and the history.
And here we go. How you doing, Corey? We ready to go?
We've been recording for a while.
Okay, great. That was good. Yeah,
Corey's got his job. Yes,
thank you, Corey.
Thank you, Corey.
That's why you're sitting where you're sitting.
Yes.
So we are here to talk about the art of decay, the dance of decay, the Decadence. Do you have a bottle for us? Because if you mispronounce things on the internet, more people will actually look at it.
Here we go. Art and Decadence. Close enough. So this is the latest limited edition from Compass Box. And this one's funny. This one's all about decadence. It was sort of... All of our whiskeys start with an idea, so they're quite intellectual at first, and then we blend to reach this idea, right? So decadence was actually an art movement. And sort of the idea behind it, as I understand it, is art for the sake of art that doesn't have to have a reason, art that's just beautiful, or just decadent, or just like over the top, and just something nice to look at. Well, this whiskey is in that vein. This is every type of barrel that is a wine finish you can use in malt and grain whiskey in Scotland. So we've got Marsala, Madeira, we've got 2 types of sherry, and the dessert wine Sauternes. All these various wine barrels in one blended Scotch whiskey, plus some really old whiskeys, some really interesting whiskeys, some whiskeys from Port Dundas once again that are no longer around. I don't remember who's.
Okay,
which sherry exactly?
Well, there's Oloroso and Palo Cortado. Oloroso being the most common, sherry. Palo Cortado a little less common in Scotch whiskey. But it's just a fun, really interesting whiskey. It's very dense. You can sip it and think about it for a really long time. One of my favorites. I'm a sherry bomb guy, and when it comes to malt whiskeys, and this having the Sauternes and the Madeira and the Marsala all added in. I recently went to Madeira, so I have a soft spot for that as well. A beautiful island, beautiful spirit, fortified wine. So yeah, it's really fun. It's really dense. It's for the wine geeks that also drink whiskey.
And the food geeks, because Madeira makes really good sauces as well.
Marsala too.
Yeah,
chicken
Marsala as
Marsala. Classic.
Yep, and Sauternes is an interesting grape as well with the noble rot. We've got all kinds of things.
Oh, Sauternes is the noble rot?
Yes.
Yeah, and to make it a part of a broader conversation, one of the reasons I love Scotch whiskey is that you can use so many barrel types. And it's fine, and that's why Scotch whiskey has so much terroir and so much variation, from light and fruity to honeyed and oated to earthy and smoky. A lot of that is the barrel. I mean, 70 to 80% of a whiskey is the barrel. And when you can use so many different weird barrels, you get so many different interesting flavors.
And just to catch us back up, we're still drinking, as from the previous episodes, the same pot of Heijuan, the black brick, the fermented tea. I think this is a 2017 that we're drinking.
And it's still going strong.
It's peaking now. Yeah, we're hitting the peak right now. So it's actually going to be good to pair with this whiskey.
This has got so many flavors and sweetness, but it's like dark fruit notes, like almost plum sauce.
Plum sauce.
Yeah, I
Like where
guess
plum sauce has that peppery spice and those dark, jammy plum notes.
Like when I have Indian samosas and it comes with the mint chutney and the plum sauce, I'm getting the plum sauce. Yeah, 100%.
And this is where we cross cultures. This is so many different versions of oak and versions of wine.
There's something I'm getting here, and I don't have a word for it, but it's something that I smell in baijiu, which is Chinese liquor, and it's something that I smell in lao lao, which is Lao liquor. They call it Lao whiskey, but I guess technically maybe it's whiskey, but it's a liquor they make in Lao, and it's just like, this is people's stills. This is not a company. This is some dude's still.
So it's like mezcal or perhaps cachaça, like tons of tiny guys' backyard
Exactly.
kind of thing. Yeah, very interesting.
It's like, this is not a business. This is some person's personal project that they're making this. And
Yeah, in rum we would call that funk.
Funk.
There's a funkiness. There's an earthiness. There's a round fruitiness.
I get a lot of stewed fruits here.
Yeah.
Almost some chocolatey covered fruits, sort of, kind of, right?
Yeah, dark chocolate.
Yeah.
That's really nice. This is so velvety. It's so it's got this really velvety quality that's really distinct from everything we've tried so far.
Yeah. What a lot of people don't realize in a used barrel, there can be up to gallons, or I don't know what the metric conversion of that is over the pond there, but there's a lot of juice still in that barrel. And when you refill it with malt or grain whiskeys, there's interactions that happen over time, and some of those sugars, some of those flavors are integrating over time. And so we're drinking a little bit of the wines in this whiskey as well.
So there's absorption into the wood, and then there's expression as the seasons change out of the wood. There's evaporation, there's concentration, there's condensation. All of these things are evaporative properties that are happening inside of those barrels, and it leaves much more flavor than it went in with.
This is lovely.
Oh, that Marshall said this, that sock note.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that
When you put enough
Yeah.
oak on something, you get some of those notes. But I'm also, after tasting the tea, I'm getting raisin, which makes sense with the sherry. But like a fun raisiny, socky kind of thing with a little dust.
Yeah.
It's
And that's not always a bad thing either.
It's very
it's
very elegant. It strikes me as a very elegant, very like I don't know how to put it. It's very classy feeling. It feels, I get that like red velvet kind of vibe from it.
Now, when we talk about all of these different cask types, there's many different ways of getting there, either multiple casks or from one cask to another cask to another cask. And this is multiple casks with multiple different flavors from all of these different wines being brought together to create this creation.
Yeah, and to make it more complicated, some of these are finished in the wine casks, some are fully aged in the wine casks, just to add wrinkles to the complexity of it. Yeah.
And it's really tough when, like, the things that are written on the bottle can be confusing to the normal consumer. They call it double barreled or double oaked or triple barreled or triple oaked. And a lot of times it's just cask management.
Yes, yeah. And, to call out the transparency of Compass Box, one of the things that drew me to the brand, the full recipe with all the barrels, all the distilleries is on the back of the label. So,
Here, I'm going to read it out loud.
yeah.
We got Balmanac Distillery with ex Sauterne, ex Marsala, ex Madeira, 39.8%. Glenmorangie, Port Dundas. Is that what it is?
Port Dundas is a continual theme tonight, actually.
Yeah.
A distillery that hasn't made whiskey. It was demolished in
Defunct.
2011 by Diageo.
And they've got a refill sherry butt in there. Linkwood Distillery with Palo Cortado seasoned butt.
Yep, another
And
sherry.
then blended Smith Parcel with primarily recharred barrels.
Yeah. We found a parcel of blended scotch that we loved the flavor but didn't exactly know the provenance, and we just bought it. So there it is. Yeah.
And every once in a while, Compass Box is not allowed to disclose, but they'll do it on their website, and they'll tell it it's on the corner of Smith and Maine. If you know which distillery is on the corner.
It's in the town of Aberlour. We try to give you a little hint. Yes. Yeah. We've been fighting for transparency in Scotch whiskey for a very long time.
Yeah.
We're only allowed to tell you the youngest whiskey in the bottle.
Right.
So, couple
You're only
years.
allowed to.
Yes. So a few years back, and you might like this, we made a whiskey called Deluxe 3-Year Whiskey.
You told me about
Yes.
this when
Yeah.
we did the vault tour. He told me a story about
It was literally 1% of a 3-year-old Scotch whiskey. Now, 3-year-old is the minimum age for Scotch.
right.
So that's that's as young as you can get. So it was 1% 3. The rest, the 99%, was quite old. I think in the 30s. This is before my time, but 30-year-old plus whiskeys, and we had to call it a 3-year.
I appreciate that though because it's taking the gimmick of age and turning it on its head and saying,
Exactly.
you know what, fuck the age.
Yeah.
We're gonna call this 3-year whiskey, and if it's good, then it's good, and
Yep.
don't worry about the age.
Yeah. Yeah, we've always been, and that's why I call us sort of a punk rock whiskey company. Is that we, although we respect the past, we also just sort of question authority a little bit when it doesn't make sense.
Cheers. Yeah,
Which is why you're here today, because I don't know of any major brand that would come to a small little podcast that was started 2 weeks ago and talk about whiskey.
Well, happy to be here.
It's delicious. This is really, really lovely.
Thank you.
I'm
Balanced.
curious, what do you think? How does it pair with that tea?
I like it a lot. I feel like when I chase it with the tea, I get a lot of that. The wood, I'm getting like the crispness of the wood is coming out more so, whereas it was like this kind of toasty, appley, sweet, jammy plum thing. When I chase it with the tea, I get this like fresh cut wood, pine, cedar, that fragrant, like resinous quality of the wood comes out. And I also wanted to say about transparency, that's our deal also. We're farm direct tea, master direct tea. This is from the Xianglushan Heicha factory. A guy, the man Liu, it's been in his family, this factory's been in his family since the 1970s. I know him, I know his mom, not on the internet, in real life. We've had meals and meals and meals together. We've drank tea together. We've chewed betel nut together, you know what I mean? And so having that transparency, and we don't have any rules about what we can and can't say, because tea is very unregulated in America compared to something like whiskey. But most tea that you drink, like the tea that you'd get at Teavana or something like that, is not going to have a person's name attached because there is no person, because it's probably some kind of factory tea that this factory is sourcing from dozens or hundreds of farmers through the region. And then they're creating this homogeneous product. But having that, this is blended, but it's not opaque. It's transparent, and that's amazing. That's a huge accomplishment, and it's a huge statement that you're making by doing this, because usually you think of blending and you think, well, the more blended it gets, the less distinctive it is.
Yeah.
And the identity's right here. I can see it on the bottle. There's this extreme transparency, which I hugely appreciate, and that's what we try to do also. Who made this tea? There's a person. It's not a factory, it's not a company. There's a person who made this tea. There's a place where it was made. It has an identity. Yeah. It's not just this anonymous product. It's got its own being. And I really appreciate that y'all are doing that with your blended whiskey and elevating the idea of blended whiskey and taking it from, oh, this is some kind of a compromise, like, Crown or something like that. Yeah. It's a blend. Okay, it's a blend. Okay, it's not going to be distinctive. But it's not only distinctive, you have these limited edition whiskeys that they just will never exist again, and that's just the deal. And that's kind of almost the opposite of what the average consumer is thinking when they think about blended whiskey. They're thinking of this kind of step down from this, but really you're actually going a step up. You're really taking these different single distilleries and harmonizing them together to make something, and they're not becoming obscured in that process. They're actually being really showcased in that process. So I see what you're doing, and I
totally
really appreciate it. I totally get it. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah, a good blend should be better than the sum of its parts.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you, guys.
Cheers.
This is exactly what we're trying to do here. And if you're interested in coming and joining us on our adventure, we're Whiskey Provisioner at West China Tea, and we're trying to bring people together. Thank you.
Cheers.